We are now moving to our second round of questions by our candidates to their opponents. Once again, our candidates will have an opportunity to ask their opponents a second question. Their opponents will have 3 minutes to respond. We will begin with our next candidate, Ms. Maritza Davila, who will now present her second round of questions to her opponents. I would just like to also remind our voters that you are viewing and listening to your council at large candidates. You will have an opportunity to vote for 3 of these candidates on May 13th, 2014 at the municipal election. We will now begin once again with Ms. Maritza Davila. Ms. Davila, you may now begin your questions.
Thank you once again, Madam Clerk. I only have one question, and that question is going to be to Councilman Ken Morris. As the longest tenured member on the council seeking re-election, and this being a system of checks and balances, how much responsibility do you take for the current conditions of our city?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Ms. Davila. Let me be perfectly clear. I am of the opinion that if not for me, the conditions of the city would be much worse. I have held steadfast to ensuring that this current administration and the future administration will be held accountable to the Patterson taxpayers. My colleagues have known that I've been relentless when it comes to spending out of control, improper spending, improper hiring. In fact, I was the sole voice, along with Councilman Gao, by the way, that first pointed out that the person being hired to run the most important department in this city, albeit a very nice person, was not qualified for that job. But I wasn't listened to. And we see what happened as a result. Millions of dollars that could have went to providing affordable housing, empowering our young people, providing jobs, went back to the federal government. In fact, my council colleagues even asked me to step up to the plate and lead the investigation for improper or erroneous overtime payments. And through that investigation, we forced those individuals to repay those payments. Also, the collective bargaining units, those employees, when they're not getting a fair shake, they reach out to me, even though it's not my responsibility as a council member to negotiate contracts. However, they knew that they would find a sound and reasonable voice who can advise them to get the best possible deal with those contracts. And I'm happy to say many have called me back and said, thank you, Councilman Morris. We are now being paid a reasonable wage. If you think this city is in bad shape now, I would only ask, what would it be if competent individuals are not placed in these seats who know the function of government, who know finances, who know economic development? Thank you for the question, Ms. Davila.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. That will be all, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Davila. Ms. Davila has concluded her second round of questions to her opponents. We will now move to our next candidate who will ask his second round of questions to his opponents, and that would be Eddie Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez will have an opportunity to ask a second question to his opponents. Once again, I ask that our candidates clarify their questions if your opponents feel that it needs clarification, and that your opponents have 3 minutes to respond, and that they respond in a timely manner. At this time, Mr. Gonzalez, you may begin your second round of questions.
Okay, thank you very much. My first question goes to Mr. Younes. Apparently he knew I was going to come up next. I'll save him. I guess I can save him for.
Yes, you can come back to Mr.
Okay.
Younes. He stepped away.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question for each candidate. In fact, here he is. Thank you for coming. To Mr. Younes, you mentioned in the opening that you are an accountant, and you asked a lot of questions around financing and how important it is to keep track of the funding, make sure you're transparent. We have tax issues. The state is on top of us because of many past deadlines or this, that, the other. Can you explain why you haven't filed your ELEC report at this time, the ELEC financial report that shows your transparency?
We are in the process to file it. I just talked to my accounting because I can't file it personally, and we're going to be submitted, I think, tomorrow. And also, when I'm saying I'm an accounting, I know what I'm saying about accounting, about financing. Okay, I'm not jeopardize people sometimes if you are getting elected as a councilman, and when you are a commissioner for Board of Education, and we have a school in Spruce Street. This school established in a building, it used to be owned to manufacture, they do painting. I don't know, when you are in a Board of Education, okay, if you want to talk about Board of Education, did you ask the state to taste the radiation in this building? I'm in accounting, and I know everything about numbers, and we will submit it tomorrow. I make sure my accounting is going to submit it. But as you are in a Board of Education, did you make sure these kids in this school, they're going to be safe, they don't have cancer in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Morris, just to reiterate the question, maybe you can answer it more clearly. You know how important it is to report this ELEC report, that it was a deadline that had passed. And it's very important that candidates who are running file their ELEC report because it's a requirement. Now, some council members have, some haven't, and some candidates have, and some haven't. Did you file your report?
I absolutely filed my report. In fact, I not only filed it, I filed it on time. Also, I also filed my quarterly reports and filed the quarterly reports on time. Because what the importance of those reports are transparency in government, and to ensure that those folks who are making contributions to candidates don't get any favors in return. It's about open government. It allows the public to review those reports so that they have a certain confidence that when an elected official votes, they're voting for what's in the best interest of the people who put them in office and not for special interests. Also, it's an indication of responsibility. If you aren't responsible enough to file your reports on time as required, how can you be responsible for moving this city forward? We have to meet several deadlines as elected officials. And it's a true indication. As I said earlier, this whole process is about the citizens of Paterson interviewing who is going to be best positioned to help not only stabilize the city, but to move it forward. Thank you for the question, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. And the same question goes for everyone on the council, as candidates.
Sure. Down the line, this is my turn.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Would you be asking the questions in the order that the council members,
Sure, I'll
that
repeat.
the candidates are seated?
I'll call them out and I'll repeat it, make sure everyone understands the question.
Yes, sir.
So the importance of filing a ELEC report, financial ELEC report, that the deadline had passed, what is the reason that you did or did not, or rather, what is the reason for not filing if you did not file, knowing that this is an indicator of how important it is to represent the city, especially with millions of dollars going back to government agencies because we failed to either file reports or to meet deadlines. If you have not filed a report, can you tell us why?
you need to point the question, and I'm assuming that you have to call the name of the person, but I will answer the question based on the line.
Mr. Gonzalez, are you asking your question of Mr. Mendez?
Yes, I'm just going to go down.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Gonzalez has indicated that he will be asking the questions in the order, in reverse order. So it would be Mr. Mendez and then Mr. McDaniel, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jackson, and Ms. Davila. Is that correct, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mendez, at this time, if you would respond to the question, were you clear on the question?
Sure, and I was totally clear on the question, Madam Clerk. I was just waiting for you to let the candidate know that he didn't have to mention the name by name or the order that he wanted to respond. But I'm ready to respond to the question. I've been running.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. I probably was a little slow at that.
Exactly. Thank you. I've been running, and I have 3 campaigns so far. I was elected for the first time in 2010, re-elected in 2013, and I also run in 2012. I've been running a very clear campaign, and I've been, every time the community see my contribution, those are contributions for local resident and the community that believe in me, that support me. It's not an excuse. I haven't filled my report. It's already done. It will be early next week. It will be, the community will have the opportunity to see the report. But once again, the community know Alex Mendez, and I've been running, this is my third campaign. And I've been running a clear campaign, and the community knows who's Alex Mendez. And every time they see the report, there's no fishy transaction like that might occur with other candidates that haven't filled out the report.
Thank you.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes, thank you for the question. To my knowledge, my campaign treasurer, which is none other than my mother, Mrs. Janet McDaniel, has filed the reports on time. There are no issues with regard to any of my filings. Thank you for the question.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, I filed my report. Unlike the other candidates, I'm shy, and I was too afraid to ask anyone for donations or contributions, so I only took it from 3 friends, and my godmother and 2 friends, actually. So, yes, my report is filed. Thank you ever so much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jackson? Or would you like the question repeated?
No,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you, Madam Clerk. Yes, I think a part of the responsibility of a council person would be to understand the importance of quality relationships and making sure that you are responsible. And although it's not our responsibility to appoint certain people to certain positions, we do oversee that, overlook that. So within my own campaign, I made sure that I put a person in place that is truly responsible and in which I do not have to be overly concerned about it. I can be more concerned about the issues at hand and that Patterson is facing. And to answer your question, absolutely, my reports have been filed and on time, and I have been grilled over them before they were, trust me.
Ms. Davila?
Mr. Gonzalez, when I launched my campaign in November, in December, we did our first report. We submitted our report. Unfortunately, the 29-day report that was to be submitted by my campaign treasurer had to travel. He had a family emergency, and he had to travel, and therefore, when he came back, which was 4 days ago, the first thing that he did was sit down with me, got all the information, and yesterday did the report, which would be in the mail, and hopefully you can see it in a few days.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, that concludes your second question to your opponents. Our next candidate who will present his second question to his opponents is Michael Jackson. Mr. Jackson will be presenting a second question to his opponents, who will have 3 minutes to respond. Once again, I would just like to remind our voters, if you're not clear regarding your location for voting, you may call the office of the city clerk at 321-1310. The city clerk's office is open from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. daily. On election day, the city clerk's office will be open from 5 a.m. until. So if you're a voter, voting starts at 6 a.m. and you have a question, please don't hesitate to call us on election day, May 13th. Our next candidate who will ask his second question of his opponents will be Mr. Michael Jackson. Mr. Jackson, you may begin.
Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk. The first question that I have for the second round is directed towards Mr. Yunus. Mr. Yunus, it is my opinion, and I believe it is more or less the consensus of the local community, that there has not been a consensus between the city council and the current operating administration. As displayed on several occasions, it seems as if there may have been certain things that have gotten under your skin. How do you ensure, because as I'm a candidate, I'm also a voter here in the city, I'm also a resident. How do you ensure that the citizens of Paterson will be electing a city council person who was going to be willing to work hand in hand, not only with the fellow council persons that he sits in the seat with, but with the unknown administration?
Thank you. Dear Parisonians, we hear and we see in TV many times debates, President, Congress, Senate, and all levels. And all time we see sometime in news coming out, some president here and file for taxes, someone he's not paying some bills, he have a violation, one of his family, they commit a crime. This is not a personal issue. I am known. I am not a corrupted person. I am a person, he's operate business in the city of Paterson. I have multi-property in Paterson. Okay, some people, they are knowns, but they taking our tax dollars and they file for bankruptcy after 2 months. It's how come someone after 2 months spend $140,000? What about our budget? He gonna spend it maybe in 2-3 months, and we're gonna file bankruptcy for our city. If you can't manage $140,000, it's not matter of unknown or you are a known person or not unknown. I am, like I said, when some of the candidates, he said, what kind, Mr. McDaniel, he said, what kind of service you provide to this community. In the past 7 years, I was working with my best friend, Bill McCoy. We provided toys. We go to first ward, third ward, fifth ward, first, fourth, fifth, third. 4 wards. We bring all the needy kids and we give them bike, we give them PlayStation, we give them, this year we give tablets, we give a lot of things. It's knowing, there is a lot of people that are knowing, but they are criminals. Some people, they are unknown because they like to work from behind. They don't want to be in the face. I mention it all the time. I don't like to take a picture with everybody. I know everybody here in the city. I know the mayors, I know the previous mayor, I know the councilmans, I know everybody in the city. I know assembly, I know the Congress, but I don't like to be in the pictures. I'm not like to make show off. I don't like to be like in showing off like I know this and that. I'm a clean person. I like to earn my money in a clear way. I don't like to commit any fraud. Okay, like other person, they love to commit fraud, open business in Paterson, they go to New York, they open another business with our tax dollars. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Yunus. The next question I have is for Mr. McDaniels. Mr. McDaniels, acknowledging your short term on the city council, and understanding that you may not have had an opportunity to play a direct role in past practices. What is your position? And if you've had any encounters, how would you move the agenda to ensure that local businesses are ensured the support that's needed, as opposed to large businesses only coming in and receiving certain governmental aid that's placed forward for the city?
Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for the question. With regard to local businesses, what I propose doing is along the lines of information, hosting workshops and ensuring that these businesses are informed of the various opportunities that we have in place through things like the UEZ and also the PRC. As you stated in one of your responses, you were, I guess, tapped on the shoulder with regard to exploring some of these opportunities. I think we have to tap many businesses because I'm sure that this information is not widely known. So we must focus on local businesses in the city of Patterson and listen to what their needs and what their concerns are and ensure that government is working for them. Without the local businesses, we won't be able to survive. We cannot survive on big business alone. And in fact, we don't have many big businesses as it is. So right now, local business is the backbone of the city of Patterson, New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniels. My next question is for Mr. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Mendez, it has been brought to my attention, third-party information, please forgive me, but it has been brought to my attention that your legal name is not Alex, in which you've placed on the ballot. If this is the case, is it true or not? And is it your intention to mislead the Patterson voters?
Sure, and I will answer to your question. It's really a shame that we get in this type of question when in reality, when we have to discuss is the situation that's going on in the city with the crime and the taxes in the city. Those are the issues that I really want to hear, and I would love to get those type of questions. Going back to your question, Alex Mendez is my name. I've been running since 2010, since 2009 as a Alex Mendez. I'm registered as a Alex Mendez, and if any registered voter has any question, they could call the city clerk in the city of Patterson, and also they could come to the legal department and review it. All right, I'm running as a Alex Mendez, and under the state of New Jersey, I have the right to do so. And just answer it, and I hope that answer your question. But I really, what I would like to hear is that the condition of the city, and I would love to hear a clear plan on how we're going to address the situation that we have in the city right now.
Thank you. Next question I have is for Mr. Bernard Jones. Mr. Jones, as you have presented yourself as a candidate, I think most of what you've done has been very notable and honorable, and we appreciate you as a citizen stepping forward to want to move this city forward. But through your own acknowledgement, having no previous board experience and not understanding the basic function of a board within itself, let alone a board such as the nature of the city, the city's operating board, what is your opinion on not having that experience? And if it was a case where you felt as if you did not offer enough experience for the position, would you consider not moving forward with your candidacy?
Mr. Jackson, the job description of a council member is to be a legislator and to balance the budget. as well as playing a role, which is being the bridge that bring the people and administration together. With that being said, I think a councilman has to focus on thinking outside the box, bringing in revenue into the city, coming up with ordinances that are going to help protect the city as well as the people in the city. And those are things I know how to do. So I guess that answered your question. And all those things that I repeated, I know how to balance a budget, know how to create ordinances. I think knowing how to be a team player, problem solver, addressing the issues that affect the citizens of this city. And there are a ton of issues that need to be addressed as far as the education of the youth in this city. The $41 million a year that is coming out of the budget to go to county fees, holding people accountable, saying, are we getting our services from the county? Are we getting our services from the Board of Education? Because we do pay into that pot. There are things about the system that I do know and I do not know, but I am willing to learn to help move the city forward.
Very good. Mr. Gonzalez, considering that we've been campaigning for quite some time and the citizens of our city has been gracious enough to present us with many opportunities to present our platforms, many forums and council debates, and which we've seen that there is a certain measure to those who have had certain experience. What experiences do you bring as a board member? As a board member of? As a person who understands board policy, okay. As a board operating board member, and someone who understands, I understand you function as a high level representative within your organization, but what experiences do you bring as an acting board chair? Okay, so thank you for the question. I have, first of all, to go back, in 2009, I was elected to serve as a commissioner on the Patterson Board of Education, where I served my term, and on that I served on numerous committees, including personnel, safety, which is illegal, and a few others. I did that, and I successfully, was part of the committee that initiated a lot of steps to reach the levels that we were required to reach through the NJQSAC, which is a measuring system for us to take back local control. It was implemented by the state that we have to reach a certain level, which is 80% of any of the governing bodies, which is the different departments, whether it's personnel, governance, finances, and we have worked hard to bring all of our policies up to date so that we can qualify to reach that 80%, so that we can get local control of that portion in which we reach 80%, which we did in numerous cases but never got local control. So that's the disconnect between what we were told and not. So on that, other boards that I've served on as a board member on the Patterson Education Fund for over 7 years now, advocating for the city's students. I bring a lot of knowledge in the area of funding, education, advocacy, going to the state to actually fight for what we believe in and what we need, funding. And I have continued to do that throughout many years. Where I work now, we work with many bodies of government, including at state levels. I have, a lot of contacts in the state through the organization that I work for, because in order for us to build the way we do need funding. And no, they don't all come from the city of Patterson CDBG grant. It comes from many other sources. So grant writing skills, networking, being able to collaborate with several governing bodies. And I actually work with a lot of the city council members on a lot of projects. We have to get certain things passed and done, as well as with the administration. Whether you like the individual or not, business has to be done. And so what I bring is a lot of experience in that area. Governing, I bring experience in knowing how to unite individuals in advocacy, advocating for the residents, ratepayers in the city of Patterson, with the for the Passaic Valley Water Commission trying to impose that we drain the reservoirs and raise rates significantly because they want to spend over $200 million of our money without telling us in a public forum and allowing the public to get input on what they're proposing, being that we're going to be spending that money. So no one else, I think, is bringing that forward. So advocacy as well.
Gonzalez,
Thank you.
Your time is up, sir. You're welcome.
Ms. Davila, more or less is the same basic question in terms of experience. Since we've had the privilege of expressing our platforms through various forums and debates, and being able to acknowledge that there is a certain amount of experience that has been that should be necessary for this board, and acknowledging some of the areas in which you may not be familiar with, do you think personally, is it your personal opinion that the city council, the body in which governs our entire city, which we all heavily rely on, is a position that should be designated for a person that is not, that has to endure a learning curve to take the position?
Thank you for the question. Mr. Jackson, the city council needs to be more diversified. I find myself as someone that will bring commitment to this council. Nobody works at a place for a long time just because. I bring to this council seriousness. I say what I mean. I'm strong. Yes, I have sat in different boards. I started by saying that I was the chair of CASA program. I'm currently a board chair to Friends of Passaic County Parks. I'm a commissioner for the planning board. And so I consider myself a very qualified person because of my commitment and the different experiences that I bring. I'm a homeowner in the city of Patterson. I have a child in the educational system. I understand the needs because every day I see the need. I see the need to lower our taxes. I see the need to bring more businesses into the city of Patterson. I sit on a board that does that exactly. So if I may sit here today and maybe not have answered all the questions to individuals' likings, I apologize for that, but my commitment will come second to none. Thank you.
Very good. The last question I have is for Mr. Ken Morris. Mr. Morris, considering you have been, at this point, one of the longest tenured city council persons, and as a citizen, as a concerned citizen, it has been my opinion that it hasn't been the last few years has not been the most conducive working environment between the board and the administration. As a person with a great deal of experience and a leader that we know that you're capable of being, is there anything that you can, that at this point with your experience that you can see that was done in the past that could possibly have been done differently to form a closer net? I'm sorry, before that portion of the question, do you believe that if the acting body of the council and the administration had a better working relationship, that it would move the agenda forward to benefit the citizens of the city? And if you do believe that, what do you think, not through your own action, but as a board and within its entirety, so that moving forward, if anyone else on this in this forum would have some insight, is there anything in your opinion that could have been done differently or could be done differently to create a better working relationship between the council and the administration?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be clear. I was not elected to be all warm and fuzzy with the administration. I was elected to serve the people of Patterson. And when the administration's agenda is aligned with the agenda of the people of Patterson, I am their biggest cheerleader. When that agenda is misaligned, I can be their biggest critic, because that's what I was elected to do. More importantly, anything that happened in the city that had positive momentum, I and my colleagues were responsible for taking the lead in partnership with the administration. Our system of government set up by the Faulkner Act sets up an administrative branch and a legislative branch. It is done that way purposely so that there are checks and balances. Those checks and balances are put into place to ensure that the electorate get the best possible government that they can get. Now, I find it somewhat amusing that some folks have said that me and the current mayor don't get along. Well, I will ask them a simple question. When did that occur, given that the current mayor was never at council meetings? So in order for us not to get along, I would think he would have to be here. All right. Now, so when I don't agree with a policy initiative, that's not getting along. That's doing what I was elected to do. It's as simple as that. So, as I stated earlier, if the agenda is about reducing taxes, economic development, job growth, employing competent folks in key positions, I'm all rah-rah. But when that agenda is about wasteful spending, the inability to fix our roads, crumbling infrastructure, high unemployment, high crime, I'm going to be your advocate and therefore the biggest critic when it comes to this administration. Thank you for the question, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. That concludes Mr. Jackson's second round of questions with his opponents. Our next candidate who will present his second round of questions to his opponent will be Mr. Bernard Jones, Jr. Mr. Jones will ask his opponents a second questions, during which his opponents will have an opportunity to respond to his questions. Mr. Jones, you may begin.
The first question is for Mrs. Maritza Davila. Sorry.
Davila.
Yes, ma'am. I have carefully gone over your platform and legislative ideas on your website, and you have said that you plan on partnering with Passaic County Sheriff Department, hiring special police officers from within the city, increasing ratables to help stabilize the taxes and enforce ordinances. Can you name 3 state programs that you would levy to attract new businesses to Patterson, as it states in your platform?
I'm sorry, what did you
In
started
your
off-
platform, you stated that you were going to partner with Passaic County Sheriff Department, hire special police officers from within the city, increase ratables to help stabilize taxes, and enforce ordinances. Can you name 3 state programs that you would use to attract new businesses to Patterson, as stated in your platform?
Okay, one of the things that I find that we're not doing very great is letting businesses know certain opportunities that they have in tax breaks. We were designated as one of the economic growth zones. If a developer wants to come into the city of Patterson, if we let them know, we mount a good campaign, letting them know the benefits of hiring, and for every person that they hire, they get a $5,000 tax break, that would be very beneficial to having in the city of Patterson. And so mounting a good campaign to let developers and businesses know the new economic growth zones in the city of Patterson.
Okay. Are we going to get the 3 state programs that you're going to use to?
Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones.
Okay.
You have-
Moving on to the next question, Madam Clerk. The next question is for Michael Jackson. You have been campaigning on being a successful businessman in the city of Patterson. Through your business experiences, how do you plan on advocating for economic growth in Patterson?
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Very good question. Well, understanding the economic growth of a city is very similar of understanding the economic growth of a business. And just to be clear, I don't have any motives outside of understanding and wanting, desiring for this city to get better. If we have a household that is out of control and we continue to want to bring in outside people to give direction and pay them to do certain things that they don't have a concern for, that is where, you know, my vision of economic growth comes into place. It is definitely beneficial to bring in outside investment, but understand this: outside investors who are looking to build in cities for economic development, they don't come in here because they feel sorry for a city. They come in because they're looking for their own personal gain within their businesses. So it's my opinion that in order for us to ensure true economic growth, we must empower the people, the citizens of Patterson first. We must consider the people who live here every day, who have to shop at stores. All of the stores at these downtown malls, the new malls that we plan to build and we plan to develop, they need to have people who can support these businesses. So in order to have a true economic foundation, we must start at the bottom. We must ensure that the people who work the hardest for us are taken care of. We must ensure that our DPW workers are making a fair wage. We must ensure that all of the people who are employed by the city, who are benefiting from the dollars that come into this city, make a fair wage in order to turn around and support the economic development growth that we put in place. It makes no sense to bring in developers to try to build situations that are not going to last. We built the mall here in this city a number of years ago, which have been planned out for a long time, and that mall is really not doing quality business. In fact, it is my opinion, if the owners of the mall weren't so endowed with the large bankroll, the mall would have been closed a long time ago. Because I think that, you know, just the gas and electric bill alone, they don't make enough to support that. So understanding business and understanding what are all the needs of a business, you have to understand that there are certain things that have to be fulfilled. If I run a business for a certain amount of years and my employees are not receiving a fair rate, they're not going to want to work for me much longer. And if they do work for me, they may be disgruntled, and then the jobs that are being done are not done to a sufficient manner. And that's my opinion of why certain things in our city are being overlooked. We're overlooking our own people, and we need to make sure we put an end to that.
Okay, Madam Clerk, this question is for all the candidates.
Do you wish to ask the candidates the question? Are you asking a different question, or are you
I'm going to
asking?
ask a separate question now, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Jones, you're going to ask several questions, but are you going to ask?
No, this is going to be one question for each candidate.
Oh, that's fine, Mr. Jones.
Okay, ma'am.
You're allowed to ask each candidate an individual question.
Yes, ma'am.
You just should indicate which candidate you're asking.
Will do. Okay.
Madam Clerk,
Yes.
I don't mean to jump in here, but if he asks a question of each candidate, there would have been certain candidates that would have had to respond to two questions. Because
Then I'll
you've
be more
already
than
asked a
happy.
question.
But my assumption was that he was going to ask questions of the remaining candidates.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to be clear, was
Oh,
his,
yes.
was his global question for the remaining candidates.
Yes, he can only ask the remaining candidates who he have.
Okay. Are you ready
Mr.
to proceed, Madam?
Mr. Jones, you're clear on that, right?
Thank you ever so much, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, which candidate would you like to start
We're
with?
going to start with Eddie Gonzalez.
Okay.
Mr. Gonzalez, a number of candidates are speaking about the special police officers. The city operates under a MOU with the State Department of Community Affairs. This is commonly called, a Memorandum of Understanding. The MOU controls the financial and personnel. There are restrictions on when employees can receive raises, when the city can bond for capital improvement and restrictions on tax increases. How do we, the taxpayers, plan on paying for these special police officers that all the candidates are recommending that we get?
Thank you for the question. Very important question. And you're right, there is an MOU with the DCA. And again, this goes back to some of the previous comments made by myself and some others. You know, everything's negotiable. That's why you have an MOU. The MOU is an agreement between, it's between the city and the DCA. So it's not necessarily dictated, it's negotiated. At this point, how would we pay for special police officers? Well, every quarter, the administration has to review their budget. They have to review their budget and make sure that, you know, everything's being accounted for, make sure there's no tax increases and things of that nature. If there's cuts that have to be made, then they have to be made. That's up to the administration. That's the mayor and his directors to talk through and figure out, and then propose that to the city council members. So the administration would have to find that money. However, the city council members can recommend and suggest to the administration on how and where to go to get some of this money. There's a state Department of Public Safety. Public safety. There's plenty of programs. In fact, the police department benefits from some of the programs that you were trying to get some information from previously. Unfortunately, that took a large cut. It was about $260,000. They took a hit of over $100,000, and that paid for police vests and equipment and things of that nature. So, you know, we are in a hard economic crisis right now, but negotiating with the DCA, because they are in favor of us taking control of our spending habits. And if we propose that we need to hire special police officers at a reduced price, cost to this to the residents of Patterson, to take the tax burden off their shoulders, they'll be in favor of that. And again, this is all in an agreement that has to be negotiated between the city of Patterson as well as the state, and I'm sure they're in favor of something like that. Again, that's the administration's role to find the funds to do this. Is our role as city council members to approve the budget that is sent to us to review. And I hope that answers your question. I don't know if it does to your liking. Thank you.
Mr. McDaniel, can you please answer that question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jones. Having actually read the MOU, I'm aware of the fact that simultaneous and concurrent with their desire, with our desire as the city council and members of the city government to have special police, the state, through the DCA, is suggesting and recommending that Patterson also have special police. So this is not something that's just an idea that came out of Patterson. The state is also suggesting that we enact an ordinance to have special police. So with that said, it's their recommendation as well. So we would be looking to fund this with money from the state. As you are probably aware, this city does receive transitional aid. So maybe our transitional aid amount, that award would have to be increased in order to help finance these special police. Additionally, special police are also a revenue generating entity. So special police will have the ability to pay for itself to some degree through tickets and fines and things of that nature. So it's not just a situation where we're paying out. Through these special police, which will be individuals, men and women from the city of Patterson, we will earn revenue as a city. So additionally, we're earning revenue as a city. The last piece that I would like to inform you about is that special police will be utilized when necessary. That's the current plan. These individuals will be utilized when necessary. So when you have parades, when you have special programs, when you need special details, when you, like noise ordinances and things of that nature, you will actually be able to call in the special police. They would not be salaried. They would be working for an hourly wage. So you would only utilize them when it's financially prudent.
Mr. Mendez.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Bernard. And I just I want to just add to some of the comment that we just hear in terms of DCA. That, you know, that the city received transitional aid to cover this special police. But now I would like to go back to some of the ordinances that we have in the city that we're now enforcing. The city is losing a lot of money. We're losing millions of dollars because we're not enforcing a lot of ordinances that we have out there. That's the reason why we have the city in the condition that it is. Abandoned property anywhere, in every corner, house in extremely bad condition. There's ordinance for all those type of action, and we're not enforcing that. Now, I will go in the last forum, I was speaking about not only the special police, but constable. We have constable in the city. And if we give those constable Title 39 under the law enforcement, we will be able to use those constable for enforce those ordinances like loud music and blocking driveway, those situations that affected the quality of life of the resident. So I think that we've been waiting too long with this. To find solution and to start thinking outside the box. That's where my concern come. I believe that action speak louder than word. We have to just go over, but I still that even that we go with the police, with the special police, we have to take a look and use those constables that we have, that we could pay them a salary, a decent salary, but it will be a lot cheaper than hire a police officer because we have to be realistic. We don't have the money, but we could make that. We could do that a long time ago, and because of the situation that we have. And I want to add that last week there was 2 fires in the city of Patterson, one in 21st Avenue, one in Union Avenue. During that day, we just have 2 police officers covering all the emergency in the city of Patterson. That's a lack of leadership. We have to come together and we have to get it done right.
Councilman Morris.
Mr. Jones, if I may please ask if you repeat the question, because I want to be sure that I provide you with a reasonable answer.
A number of candidates are speaking highly about the special police forces to bring into the city. The city operates under the Memorandum of Understanding with the State Department of Community Affairs. The MOU controls the financial and personnel. There are restrictions on when employees can receive raises, when the city can bond for capital improvement, and restrictions on tax increases. So with that being said, where would we get the funds to pay for these special police officers?
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I had a sense that was the question that you had originally asked. Special police aren't paid. Special police are a volunteer police force. So we don't necessarily need to find the money to compensate them because they work on a volunteer basis. They do that in an effort to then go into the academy to become what we call armed police officers. Now, there are 2 classes, Class 1 and Class 2. Now, what the council has been advocating for, that the best volunteer is a paid volunteer. So despite the fact that we are not required or obligated to pay special police, there are other communities, Helden, North Helden, I believe, who have special police forces who aren't paid. But my sense is that folks should be compensated for providing reasonable work. So, circling back to another part of your question, where do we find the money if it is my intent to actually compensate special police who we are not obligated to pay? We have approximately $8.4 million of new revenue that's scheduled to hit this city in 36 months. Why am I so sure of that exact date and that exact amount? Because the particular project is mandated by the type of funding that they are receiving, that project goes from shovel in the ground to ribbon cutting in that 36 months. That $8.4 million, a portion of it can be used to pay for our special police program. This is new revenue, and this is a continuous revenue. This is not a one-shot revenue deal. And I will talk a little bit more about it because it's in my closing comments. So, the answer to your question, we will have the special police. There are men and women who will want to volunteer for that force, and we'll put that force in place, and they will work in partnership with our armed police force to provide the quality of life that the citizens of Patterson deserve. Thank you again, Mr. Jones, for the question.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for the question. This is this question, I have it in my platforms, which is 5 minutes or less for police response time, plan, and policy. Mr. Morris, he said we're going to get money from those projects that's going to take place in the city, which is we have a budget short every year, $27 million. And we ask and we seek the state for aid and helps. Special police or private police or voluntarily police, no one is going to risk his life coming to our city voluntarily because, you know, we have a crime, high crime. Let's go talk seriously. We have 396 officers in the city of Patterson. Our population since 1966, 142, and now we have 146,000 people living in the city of Patterson. It means our population is the same, but we have more police officers being hired in the city. 396 officers working in the city of Patterson, from the chief to the lowest officer in the city. Okay, I have a plan, I mention it in all my debate. If we divide the city of Patterson to 8 districts, which is, we make our city of Patterson, the size is 8.7 what? Somebody told me 8.7 square mile, which is not that huge. If we divide it to 8 districts, we put in each district 2 officers. We need 80 officers to work 24/7 in each district. Okay? We have 396. Where is the rest of officers? I said all time, we have mismanagement. We have no accountabilities. We have no one goes over this department. We have a contract with the police department. Who signed the contract? They are the member of councilman, include the mayor. They didn't read it wisely. They didn't do it for the benefit of Patterson. And we have a councilman, they do just coming from their full-time job, checking head, Bassett, and they sign it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. That concludes Mr. Jones's second round of questions to his opponents. Our next candidate who will present his second round of questions to his opponents will be Kenneth McDaniel. Mr. Kenneth McDaniel will present his second question to his opponents, who once again will have 3 minutes to respond. Mr. McDaniel, you may begin your second round of questions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First question will go to Commissioner Alex Mendez.
Yes.
And I believe I'll share it with a number of council people, candidates. All right, here's an example of an issue that comes before the council for resolution. This is a current issue. If you're familiar with the Ivanhoe Wheelhouse and the current battle over the legitimacy of its current governing body, what would you say the council's role is with regard to resolving this ongoing problem at that location? If elected, what would you do to bring about a fair resolution to all interested parties, including the residents of Patterson?
And I will ask you to ask the question in detail from the beginning,
Okay.
because obviously you are at this council, and I'm not sitting at this council. So if you could ask the question in detail, I'll be more than happy to answer to you.
Okay. Here's an example of an issue that has come before the Municipal Council for resolution. It's a current issue. If you have been watching the council as of late, you would have seen this. If you are familiar with the Ivanhoe Wheelhouse and the current battle over the legitimacy of its current governing body, what would you say the council's role is with regard to resolving this ongoing problem at that location? If elected, what would you do to bring about a fair resolution with all interested parties, including the residents of Patterson?
Sure, and I want to be, I will be honest with the register, with the voters. I'm not fully aware about the Ivanhoe Wins battle this time right now, but I will go deep and I will go and research. And I like I said before, in my track record, speak for myself. I'm a team player, and when I sit at any government body, my job is to collaborate and work with the community in representing the taxpayer, which is the taxpayer that I will represent once I get elected. But I will go deep into that information. But at this time, I will not go in detail because I have to go over this case deep.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendez. Same question for Mr. Yunus.
This was discussing in a special meeting for the councilman. I don't know, I was here that day and I left. I think we're going to go to the main issue. We have a councilman's here. They try to discuss issues in a special meeting, like a settlement for one of the employees for $312,000 in CD department. And we have many settlements for the police department, $1.5 million, and it's signed by you, Mr. McDaniel, and Councilman Ken Morris. And there is many mismanagement in this city. And when we come into the agenda, those agenda is not taking place to the public to hear it and discuss it. And like I said all the time, we need people, they know what they're doing in the city. Not coming from school after 4 o'clock, tired, 5 hours a week, they didn't do nothing for the city. If you have a full-time job, just stay with your full-time job. We are available. I'm available for the city. I'm running for this seat. I'm available 24/7. I'm giving away my salary, $42,000. I'm running for just $1 to serve the community. I'm not have a full-time job in any organization or school or any place else. I have my own job. You could reach me in my job. I could leave my job anytime. I don't have to take a permission from my boss. I will discuss any issue for the benefit of our community and take it to our community in the street. Talk to the people one by one if he like this one or he gonna benefit him or not or harm him. I am running, like I said many times, to serve the community for $1. I'm giving away my salaries just to be a servant for Personian, not taking money for 5 hours sitting here in a chair, passing budget or passing resolution or passing any settlement for any lawsuit against the city. We need something to help our community. We're not just coming here to talk, say this and that. We need a plan. We need someone work hard for the community. If you're not available to serve the community, if there is any crime happen when you are in your business, you can't come down to the city hall. Like someone, he lost 2 brothers in Broadway, he have a gas station. None of our members and our city members, they go there, they talk to the owner, give him the news about his brother they lost. Or see him, or talk and tell him, oh, we are sorry, we're going to help you, how are we going to help you? We have a big problem here in the city. We need to change everything. We're going to change the city from the foundation to have a new elected official to help Barrisonian. Okay, not just show off, I have a title, or I have, the people, they call me a councilman. Thank you so much.
Mr. Yunus, your time is up.
Okay, what I'm going to do is change the question so I can possibly get a response directed towards the question. So my next question, I have to change it up. All right, I'll go to Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, if you are familiar with the North Side buyout program, if elected, what would you do in order to ensure that, 1, the process is expedited and Patterson does not lose the allocated funding, 2, to ensure that sellers receive fair offers for their property, and 3, to ensure that renters are placed in equivalent housing?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to attempt to answer both, but before I do, can I just get the 3 bullet points again, because I want to make sure I hit each of them?
Yes. 1 says, if elected, what will you do in order to, number 1, ensure that the process is expedited and Patterson does not lose the allocated funding? 2, to ensure that sellers receive fair offers for their property, and 3, to ensure that renters are placed in equivalent housing.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to answer this, and I'm going to attempt to answer the last one that you didn't get your response to. So the North Side buyback program. Unfortunately, because of a lot of the unfortunate weather and things that has occurred in this city, there's a lot of abandoned properties, there's weather damages to a lot of properties. A lot of properties are foreclosed on or just left behind. With this, what we can do is ensure that, to answer the first question, to ensure that the process is expedited, is make sure that we have a plan. Make sure we have partners in place ready to redevelop. Make sure that we have adequate support for anyone who is in one of these homes. To answer the second question, sellers get fair pricing, obviously. I mean, we will not approve anything that is not in the benefit of the individual who may be losing their home, and we're making sure that there's one of the plans that I would propose is that we have a lot of vacant properties. Let's offer one of those properties to one of these individuals that are leaving the North Side. Let's make sure that we have a program where there's a possible trade. Now, that would have to be further discussed and looked into, investigated, to make sure that the properties that are vacant or abandoned in other areas that are suitable for redevelopment for some of these individuals. So I would look at that as a transfer, make sure that we take them out of the North Side and we can give them a trade-off, if not a fair pricing. If we have to give them less for whatever reason, maybe the condition is not great, then, again, utilizing some other vacant properties to make sure we redevelop them and put them back on the tax roll and give them to some of these individuals who may be losing their home. Third one, equivalent housing, like I said, transferring some of these properties over to individuals who may be moving out and losing some of these properties. So I guess I answered that question, but I do want to answer the Ivanhoe. I'm like a kid saying, me, pick me. At the end of the day, the Ivanhoe project that the city currently leases for $1 to the art group that's currently running it, that used to be Christine Conforti, and is no longer there. There's a PAC right now. There's another arts group that's called the Patterson Art Council that's currently in the 50 Spruce Street. They have the Arts Factory. They're very, very recognized at this point. A lot of development has happened. A lot of artists, a lot of musicians have come there. We need to create an arts council, because that district where the Ivanhoe exists is an art district. There's a lot of art housing there for artists, and they have subsidized housing as long as they're artists and they're doing work in galleries in that location. So we need to create a commission, in which I participated in the NEA grant, which is a National Endowment of the Arts that we received funding to put a plan, a comprehensive plan together to make this happen. And that plan I'll bring to the city council to make sure we move forward, because we already did the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez, for answering the Ivanhoe question for the other candidate. The next question, Mr. Jackson, as you are aware, there have been a number of citizens and even elected officials calling for a citywide curfew. Are you in favor of a citywide curfew for juveniles? And what are the pros and cons to such an ordinance?
Thank you, Mr. McDaniels, for the question, which is a very sensitive question. I think this question hits to the root of the citizens of Paterson. As a father of young children and as my children come of age, I understand some of the trials and some of the circumstances that they're faced with. And considering whenever the hour becomes late, the chances of negative activity occurring becomes greater. So from that standpoint, as a father, as a business owner, as a concerned citizen, as a mentor, I've been, teaching martial arts in the city for well over 20 years. I've been coaching various teams for maybe longer than that, volunteering my services with various organizations. I think it's very important that we ensure the safety of our children. Not only do we need to ensure the safety of our children, but we need to instill in them, proper guidance to make sure that they understand that, hanging out all night just isn't the answer for certain things. It creates a high level of responsibility, and that's something that I think that we need to be considering. So would I consider a curfew for individuals under a certain age? I definitely would consider a curfew. But on the other side, I would also look at considering how these situations, ordinances, or laws that we put in place are enforced. It's my opinion that we need to make sure that the enforcement portion of these things are done in a manner which is respectful. Just this morning, we're repaving certain streets in our city, which I think is a fantastic situation. But we're bringing in a full line of outside contractors to do so, and then the citizens pay the burden, which we've always done. We have been the target of our own city. We get ticketed for things that, outsiders don't get ticketed for. Our vehicles get towed, and we're placed with the burden of that put on our shoulders. And when you talk about enforcement and enforcement across the board, I think that we need to make sure that our children are being treated respectfully. So although I do support an ordinance that will help clear the streets, I also support training for those who plan on facilitating the enforcement of these ordinances, and making sure that we have our checks and balances in place to make sure that it's not my son, your daughter, or some of our children that are being mistreated by people who are overstepping their boundary in terms of enforcement. Now, we also need to look at the businesses and their responsibility and how they play a part in this as well. Businesses that don't have a clean track record should not be allowed to stay open after certain hours. If businesses are not being responsible businesses, they should be held accountable.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Just piggybacking off the same question, this next question is for Ms. Davila. Ms. Davila, if you are in favor of a citywide juvenile curfew, how would you go about enforcing it? If you are against it, please tell us why you are not in favor.
Councilman McDaniel, what I would love to see is to have a huge recreational facility in the city of Paterson so our youth can go there, get tired, and by the time they get home, they don't want to be in the streets. It is a touchy subject. I do have a 14-year-old. I make sure that he's home and not outside after certain hours. We as parents have to take responsibility for that. But it's a touchy subject because you're infringing on people's rights. So at this time, I would have to say that I disagree with the curfew.
Thank you, Ms. Davila. Next question is for Councilman Morris. Councilman Morris, if elected to your, what will it be, third term? Fourth term. What will you do to work with grassroots organizations from the position of a sitting councilman?
Thank you for the question, Councilman McDaniels. I currently work with many grassroots organizations to foster quality of life improvements within the city of Patterson. I will continue to do so. They reach out, I meet with them, and it could be an organization or it can be a single individual who, as long as they want to do something that's positive for the city of Patterson. Many of these organizations ask me to come and help them set their budgets, help them to set up accounts, business accounts, 501c3s, and I will continue to do that. I'm always available for anyone who would need my assistance to make sure that as long as they're providing a needed service or they're becoming a safety net provider for the city of Patterson, I will be always available to work with them. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. Next question will be for Mr. Bernard Jones. Mr. Jones, what is the UEZ? What purpose is it designed for? And if elected, what structural changes would you enact within this organization?
Mr. Jones, turn your mic on, sir.
Sorry. Can you repeat that question, Councilman McDaniel?
Yes. What is the Urban Enterprise Zone, the UEZ? What purpose was it designated for? And if elected, what structural changes will you enact for this organization?
I think at this particular time, I've already started developing a committee that will focus on bringing minority businesses into the city. And after sitting down with that department and seeing how we can get the citizens to come together and work together on how to get other revenue into the city to help enhance the structure, the infrastructure, as well as businesses into the city. It's all about bringing the people together that make the citizens feel like they're part of something, that help with administration develop different ideas on helping the city move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Did I ask Commissioner? I have all of you? All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You've asked everyone. Our next candidate who will present his second question to his opponents will be Mr. Alex Mendez. Mr. Mendez will have an opportunity to ask his opponents a second question. Once again, I'd like to remind our viewers you are watching the Council at Large Candidates Forum, and we are now in the second round of question and answers. At this time, Mr. Mendez, you may begin asking your second question.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And my first question is for Ms. Davila and Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Mike Jackson. From the beginning, I have stated I am running an independent campaign because I feel that I can and I will work together hand in hand with any administration because it's my focus in the best interest of the community. My question to all those three candidates is, which mayor candidate are you affiliated on, or on which ticket you're running and why? Starting with Ms. Davila.
Thank you, Mr. Alex Mendez. Currently, if I am invited to any event and a mayoral candidate is there, I will attend. I am going to be working with whatever mayoral candidate wins. I have a good relationship with many of them. I've known some of them for years. I've supported some in the past, and I currently work with some. And so I would have to say at this time that it does not matter about the affiliation. It's what we're going to do when we win after May 13th. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you for the question. I also agree that we have to work with every administration, anyone who enters these doors. Now, I do have a vote for a mayor. I do have my personal vote for a mayor, and that's going to be the mayor that I feel is equipped and ready to go. And he has not been endorsed by anybody recently. So that's not my vote. I will support a mayor who's sat in the seat. I'll support a mayor who has the experience for over 20-plus years. I would support a mayor who has worked in the city of Patterson. I would support a mayor who understands housing. I would support a mayor who understands how to reduce taxes or stabilize taxes. I would support a mayor who can collaboratively work with the city council members and puts the people of Patterson first. I'll support a mayor who is willing to bring back police officers to patrol our streets. And I think everyone knows who that mayor is. Thank you.
Mr. Mike Jackson.
Mr. Mendez, thank you for the question. First things first, I want the citizens of Patterson to be sure and be clear that I set out to run for city council at large to be clear and transparent, to make sure that I am responsible and not practicing politics as usual. I think that our city's been suffering a great deal because of the politics that have been involved. I don't warrant myself as the answer or having the answer to set out to claim that I can endorse anyone. So I'm focused on my own campaign, on what it is that I can do to help the city move forward. I think in the past, you've often had candidates or council people who've sat at these very seats who often try to play the role of the mayor. And I think that that has hurt the process, the due process. So I'm strictly focusing on the job and the duties as a council person, my role as a citizen in the city, as a business owner in the city, and how can I help the agenda move forward. So no, I have not endorsed any candidate because I don't believe that my title warrants will carry any significance with an endorsement, but I do think my track record in this city as a citizen, as a contributor, as a volunteer, as a taxpayer, as all of the above measures up to the qualifications for city council seat.
The next question is for Mr. Ken McDaniel. It's my understanding that at this point in time, you have a position, a county position, which is a salary that comes from our taxpayer making more or less $150,000. And also you have a position as a council at large in the city of Patterson, which is a 40 plus. We're talking about $200,000 from the taxpayer. Being you in that position, I would love to hear a clear plan of what are you planning to do to reduce property taxes in the city of Patterson.
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure how the question relates to my personal salary, but nonetheless, as an elected official, I'm open to such rhetoric. The meat of your question is regarding lowering property taxes, and I believe that I touched on this with an earlier question from one of the other candidates. There are a number of different things that we will be able to do in my first full term of 4 years on the City Council, one of which I already outlined, re-examining the contracts, the labor contracts that we're in, looking for avenues to save money. In several offices, we have situations where we're not running as effectively and as efficiently as we should be, including the tax assessor's office. We have situations where we are continually going to court and losing. So we need to be smart in how we proceed with labor issues that land us in court, how we settle cases when there's certain instances where we can fight those cases and prevail. Those are areas where we can save money. The special police, that's an area where we will be able to save money. There are a number of different areas that we can save money. We have to pull up our shirt sleeves and really burn the midnight oil looking at these budgets. This first year was actually the second year that I had a full budget cycle. I realized that the state withholding information with regard to our award amount has hurt us as a city. We need to pressure the state to get that information, get that number to us as soon as possible so we can utilize all of the information necessary when we craft our budget. Thank you.
The next question is for Mr. Hayden Unit. And the question is, in which area do you feel that the budget can be cut or reduced without compromising the service offered to our citizens?
Spending, how we spend. To answer this question, I have to look to the budget, where we spend our money. Where is our spending money goes, which department? And I mentioned many times, we have a police department and fire department, they take $70 million from our budget. And we have spending not wisely in the city. And I say it and keep saying again, we need management. We have problem with the management in the city. Our council members here, those they serve in finance chairs, they are weak in financing. They give grant money to investors and they didn't have the right plan, those investors when they came to the city. And someone, he's like a minority business, if we give him money from our grant money, how we give this person money and he's filing bankruptcy after 2 months? And how we have a minor business in Governor Street. This guy, he's 70 years old, Afro-American, he have a laundromat for a long time, he have just washer and dryer working in his place. None of our councilman goes there. Cutting budget, or cutting the budget in our city, like I said, we have it in 2007, $207 million, and now $246 million. I have to go look, where is this money goes? To see the weak place, where the money is wasting. We have a lot of checks goes, overtime salaries, we have checks, sick days and vacation days. And I don't know, the financing chair, when he approved these checks, this is the weeks in this department. You know, we should find, there is a lot of problem in the city. I call it, we have big corruption in this city. To cut the budget, you have to bring me all the numbers to look at it, department by department, to see why we give this department this much of money, and why this department take this much of money, why we pay for this contractor this much of money. We have to investigate it one by one, and I guarantee for you, I will cut the budget and bring it back to $207 million. Because in 2007, we have 207, I'm gonna bring it back. And we have extra money in our pocket. And we're gonna cut the taxes for our residents. Because we increased the taxes 40% after 2007. And I'm gonna get it back again. Because who put the blame in the state and they can't manage these departments, they have the problem. We should just not sign or say yes, approve. We should investigate each dollar goes out of our pocket. Thank you so much.
That concludes my question, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mendez. That concludes Mr. Mendez's second round of questions to his opponents. We will now move to our next candidate, Mr. Kenneth M. Morris Jr., who will be presenting his second round of questions to his opponents. As I stated, Mr. Morris may present a question to his opponents, and they will have 3 minutes to respond. Mr. Morris, you may begin.
Thank you again, Madam Clerk, and once again, as I had stated earlier, my questions will be centered around finance, economic development, tax, and job growth. And it's my hopes that, being that many of you have been campaigning and or running for almost a year, that you will be able to provide an answer that will allow the voting public to begin to evaluate your skill set with regard to doing this job, and I wish each and every one of you luck. Beginning again with Ms. Davila. Again, Ms. Davila, this question would be relative to economic development. What provisions of the Economic Opportunity Act recently approved by the Municipal Council will help to foster development in the city? And how do they differ from those contained in the Healthcare Enterprise Zone and Garden State Growth Zone legislation?
Is your mic on, Ms. Davila?
I'm sorry,
question,
would you
please?
like? Certainly, thank you. Once again, the question is relative to economic development. What provisions of the Economic Opportunity Act recently approved by the Municipal Council will help to foster development in the city? And how do they, by they I mean those provisions, differ from those contained in the Healthcare Enterprise Zone and Garden State Growth Zone legislation?
Mr. Morris, currently, you mentioned various things. I'm going to make sure that when I sit in this chair, I'm going to make sure that when I get the packets, that I review them very carefully, and that I understand when I'm voting on something. You, as the senior councilman, are privy to many things, and I admire you for that, okay? But asking me such a question right now that really I am not privy to makes me wonder. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davila. I hope when you say senior, you don't necessarily mean old.
No, absolutely not.
My next question is for both Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Jackson. So if I need to repeat it, I'll be happy to do so. Mr. Gonzalez, and this question is premised on the fact that I've heard each of you say or commented that about your unwillingness to bend over backwards for the state with regard to the memorandum of understanding and those conditions contained herein. Keeping that in mind, the MOU, as I explained during a recent forum, does not mandate that the city do anything. It does, however, set certain conditions in order for the city to receive the aid. As again, many of you have stated publicly that you would not bend over backwards for the state, essentially rejecting their financial assistance. Therefore, given that absent this aid, a homeowner paying $8,638.08 would have to pay $19,037.34. What is your plan to come up with the extra $10,399.26 needed to keep people from losing their homes? Please be as specific as possible.
Thank you, Councilman, for the question. One, yeah, I did say I would bend over backwards for the taxpayers of this city and make sure that I do everything that I can possibly do to make sure that we do not have to increase their taxes. And in your case, you make this statement as if we're saying that we will not negotiate and therefore the funds will be returned or not given to us. An MOU is a negotiation. It's an agreement between two bodies. And part of that is coming up with creative ideas. And that's what I'm talking about, bending over backwards, thinking out of the box, being aggressive, making sure that we know what we want, and of course, there needs to be a plan for everything we propose. Because the city, can propose something to the DCA, they can come back with something, it's a negotiation, it goes back and forth. Now, when they dictate that this is what you have to do in order to meet this budget, then that's a problem. That's a problem. That's what I mean. We have to have a strong backbone to say this is not right. You're dictating something to us. And again, I'll go back to what I said previously, that the state, if you have been paying attention, and I'm not talking about you specifically, but the community, if you've been paying attention, the state is under investigation, or has been under investigation. There's many towns and cities that are being, roughed up and not supported like they should. And one of the questions I would have, is Patterson one of those towns? We have not, City Council at this point in the administration has not questioned the state as to see if we're one of those towns that are being bullied, if you will. Now, at the end of the day, there is always a class action lawsuit that we can do if there's not enough funds. We cannot continue to raise taxes, and that's what I mean about having a strong backbone. I will refuse to pass a budget, just like yourself, that's going to raise any taxes, and I'm not going to, borrow from Peter to pay Paul, and either case we're losing. Is a lose-lose situation. We need to gain control of our city, of our budget, of our expenses, and we need to demonstrate that to the DCA so that the DCA can have some more confidence in the City Council and the administration, knowing that we are handling our business. And they're not currently seeing that. They see controversy, they see battles between the administration and City Council. That all has to stop. I'm a fair guy. Everyone knows me. I work well with everyone. At the end of the day, like you said prior, we're not elected here to be buddy-buddies with people. We're here to do a job. But I also think that of the state. We're here to represent the city of Patterson, the taxpayers, no matter what the state has. And I'm going to make a comparison. The federal mandate, there's a federal mandate telling the Passaic Valley Water Commission, which is a separate body, telling them to drain the reservoirs, meaning that we're going to have to pay $200 million out of ratepayers' pockets. We're advocating that. It's in the newspaper. I'm sorry, but that's the kind of advocacy I'll do. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You must cease speaking. Thank you.
Thank you for the response, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Jackson, I'll just restate portions of the question so I'm clear.
Thank you, sir.
Given that the state isn't dictating or mandating anything, they're actually setting conditions. So given those conditions, what I'm really looking for is what would be your planned indoor recommendation for providing the homeowner with that additional money if the state withdrew that transitional aid?
Well, first and foremost, fantastic question, Mr. Morris, as usual. I want to be clear. If you put yourself into a situation, you back yourself into a corner, there's a very old saying that many of us are aware of. Beggars cannot be choosy. So the state is allowed to mandate certain provisions on us because we need to turn to them for that aid. And if we made sure that we did certain things within our budget to ensure not to have to go to the state, then we will be able to dictate more clearly how we want things to be ran. You yourself, you implemented a great program, a fantastic program, which I did not have the opportunity to participate in as a homeowner, but I did get the exposure to go before the county and protest my current taxes. Now, what's happening within that infrastructure, what taxpayers need to be aware of, there's city representation that's there and there's county representation that's there. And although you may be stating a clear claim in which your taxes should be reduced by 50%, you still may not be granted a fair opportunity with that percentage. They may, because they look at the numbers and they offer you a counterclaim for maybe 20%. And then they enforce, because a lot of our citizens don't know that you need to go to these forums more prepared. You may need a full appraisal, because they can then tell you, well, you know what? We don't think that that's warranted. So when you look at reducing tax burden, of course you can't can't go around the city and tell every taxpayer they're going to be able to pay less in taxes and yet still have the same burden of responsibility in the budget. So we need to look at the budget directly and make sure that some of those line items are moved around in a different manner in which we can protect ourselves. For instance, in my opinion, if we were collecting our own garbage, I know I made this point earlier, that's a $7.2 million budget. We go out the bond for a lot of things. We went out the bond, we talk about going out the bond for repaving our streets. Just to buy a fleet of new trucks would cost less than that 1 year of service. Now we could put our citizens to work with the money that's left over. Then, the following year, we can be a lot more prudent, and we can make sure that the money that we save by not giving someone else a profit can go back into the pool to ensure reduction in taxes to our taxpayers. So, I mean, it's about clear education, educating our citizens, and also accountability, making sure the people that sit here and the people that are within the administration are accountable and capable of moving the budget forward. And hopefully I've demonstrated that to you just now.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. If I just may offer, colleagues, be sure that you look at the camera that was pointed out to you, because as I look at the monitor, I'm actually seeing the side of your face. So take advantage of this opportunity to get your message out to the public. And, particularly Mr. Jackson, people consider you to be a handsome fellow, so I figure you want to be right in that camera.
I don't know if I want to say thank you to that compliment, Councilman.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was not on, so the whole time we've been this one camera, we've been looking at this one. Right, but he said that we're supposed to look this one.
Mr. Ming?
Over that way.
Okay.
Everyone from Maritza Davila to up to Bernard Jones should be at this camera, and everyone from Mr. McDaniels to Mr. Eunice should be at that camera over there.
The concern raised regarding whether or not that camera is functioning.
It's not on, I've been watching, it's just been pointed at you the whole time.
I'm sorry, we have Ms. Nancy Greer. Ms. Greer, what? Okay, their concern was there was no light. They can see you through different cameras, and the cable crew has assured me that they see all of you and how wonderful you look, so.
Madam Clerk, thank you for that compliment.
Including the old dude?
So,
Senior.
I have been assured that the cameras are working and the cable casters can see you through specific cameras.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
Continue with my questions to Mr. Bernard Jones. It's actually a very simple one, in so much that many of the folks here this evening have been talking about pilots and abatements. And there is a difference between an abatement and a pilot, pilot being payment in lieu of taxes. Could you explain for us the difference between the two?
The abatement is what we give to businesses that bring, that come into the city. Something I think that we should focus on with council. And I'm sorry, can you repeat that question? I answered the first one.
The difference between an abatement and a pilot.
Well, the pilot you said, which are bringing the taxes that are, hold up, repeat the question totally over.
Okay. If you could please explain for us the difference between a tax abatement and a pilot, which stands for payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay. Payment in lieu of taxes would be the payments that are made by residents and, hold up, I am so sorry, and out of it. The abatement is what we give to businesses that come into the city, which help us pay our taxes and focuses on the tax rate. The pilot, which would be the taxes that are paid by residents, money that we are actually receiving.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Councilman McDaniels. This current MOU, as well as the past MOU, is requiring that the city of Patterson begin to set fees for parades that occur within the city. Could you please share with us what would be your recommendations to ensure that there's parity and equality among the fees that are set for the various groups, keeping in mind that some groups have the ability to raise substantially more money than other groups? So what would be your recommendations on how to develop that fee structure so that there's fairness amongst everyone?
Thank you, Councilman Morris, for that question. I think it's imperative that when we do develop a fee structure, that it is in fact something that's equal across the board. I would be in favor of reaching out to all of the individuals and groups, organizations that have been known to sponsor such events and invite them to the table to address what this fee structure will be moving forward. Choices include a flat rate. However, a flat rate has its disadvantages because some of these events are far larger than others. Some of them last for a longer period of time, and some of them have requirements for more police and more Department of Public Works services. So the flat fee structure may not work so well across the board in the city of Patterson. It would be the easiest way to go. However, sometimes the best way to go is not always the easiest way to go. So I would be in favor of looking at just exactly how much of our resources will be utilized for said event, and then coming up with some sort of percentage-based fee based upon utilization of city resources. Thank you, Councilman Morris.
Thank you, Councilman McGinnis. Mr. Mendez, Commissioner Menendez.
Sure. Yes.
This last memorandum of understanding required the city to recast its long-term debt. What benefits did this provide to the taxpayer, if any, and what harm resulted from this decision, if any?
Sure, and I have an idea, but I want you to repeat the question to make sure that I give you the proper response.
Certainly, be happy to. The MOU, the past MOU, required that the city recast its long-term debt. What benefits did this provide the taxpayer, if any, and what harm resulted from this decision, if any?
Wait, well, in terms of the taxpayer, and I will just, my knowledge, go up to there. I don't think that going back with the long-term debt, I don't think that that's a benefit for a taxpayer. And we had this conversation before in one of the debate, and I want to go back to what I say on that debate. And we have to be responsible with the money that we're spending. We're spending money that we don't have in the city at this time. And if you have $100, you go to the supermarket, that's the money that you need to spend because that's your budget. I think that the city have to, when it comes to recap the long-term debt, I think that we have to look deep into that because the situation is that the taxpayer, they are the one that ultimately, they're going to be the one that's going to pay the price for that negotiation. I think that we have to look deep into that, but I'm not in favor at all.
Thank you, Commissioner Menendez. Mr. Yunus, I must say I appreciate and applaud your passion. I only wish that your facts would match up to it. But one of your signature campaign promises is around the issue of public safety. What you propose to address the crime in this city is to divide the city up into districts that measure 1.8 miles, taking in consideration that the entire city is 8.7 miles. And that these 1.8 mile mini districts be covered or patrolled by 2 officers. Given that it is documented fact that the amount of police officers needed to patrol a city is determined by population density and not area, taking your proposal, an area that measures 1.8 miles will typically have over 20,000 people. Please explain to me how does 2 patrol officers maintain order in a population of 20,000 people when they are outnumbered 10,000 to 1?
Okay, first of all, the number you mentioned, 1.8, is wrong. The city, 8.7 square mile. If we divide it to 8 districts, it's going to be 1.1 square mile. This first thing. When I mentioned my proposal for these 8 districts, when I put 2 officers in each district, I want to bring to your attention, this district is going to covered with 80 officers, plus 80 captain, sergeant, lieutenant. They're going to serve to manage these officers, which is going to be 160 officers. If we minus 160 from 396 officers, we have there like 236 officers. We don't know where they are, okay? I need these actual police officers. They sit in somewhere in any building. They're hiding by the gas station. They're hiding by Dunkin' Donut, by pizzeria. I need to see them in the street. The 160 between officer and captain and lieutenant, they are managing the other 80. Like I said, there is 236, include the chief and his staff. If we minus another 40, there is another 200 officers. We have available there in our city enough officers, but they are serving in different buildings, not belong to the city. They are working, I don't know how they do the our work schedule. I don't know how they set up it. Like I said all time, we have officers. We have a police officer in the city, 396. If we divide these to 4 wards, we divide the city to 4 districts, we cover it with 100 officers. Next neighborhood, Prospect Park, it's 1 mile, 1.2 square mile. How many officers work there? This is my question. I have a fact, I have a number, we could discuss it. But the problem, our elected officials didn't know how to do contract. If I want to do contract with someone, I'm going to negotiate from the top, not from the bottom. As the councilman, Ken Morris, he approved $1.5 million settlement with the police department. How come the police department, they sued the city for $5 million, we came back down to settlement $1.5 million? There is a lot of miscounting and calculation in this city. Like I said all time, we have unprofessional elected official to present the city. We waste our tax dollars not wisely, you know. People unaware what's happening, what's going on in the city. Like I said, they have a full-time job. They come and attend the meeting 5 to 12. Bye-bye.
Mr. Yunus, your time is up, sir.
Once again, colleagues, Ms. Davila, thank you for responding to the questions. I'm sure the public appreciates when you actually responded to the question and show them the respect by giving them the answers that they deserve. Thank you again.
Mr. Morris, there's no rebuttal.
That was me thinking.
Our next candidate to present his second question to his opponents is Mr. Haitham Yunus. Mr. Yunus will present his second question to his opponents. Once again, the opponents or candidates have 3 minutes to respond. There is no rebuttal on the side of the candidates or on the side of the candidate asking the question. Mr. Yunus, you may begin.
Okay. His first question is going to go
Mr. Yunus, please make sure your mic is on, sir.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're
Ms. Clark.
welcome.
This is your seat. It's comfortable.
I'm glad you like it.
Thank you so much. It's, you know, I missed with my questions. We go to first question to Ms. Davila. Okay. I love women. I have a wife. I love her. I have 3 girls. Okay. Ms. Davila, if you get elected as a councilwoman, and after you get elected for a few months or a year, you find yourself you can deliver the job you promised the resident. Are you willing to resign? Yes or no?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Yunus. Maritza Davila is not a quitter.
I'm sorry.
Maritza Davila is an individual that's committed. And there is nothing that I don't start that I finish. I'm committed to my city, I'm committed to Patterson, and I will make sure that I complete my term. There's a lot of things that I have planned that I may have not been able to convey, but I will tell you this, my commitment will show. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your answer. Mr. Gonzalez, we heard a lot of millions you manage it for your boss, which is all these millions coming from grant money from the state. It's not from your boss pocket. And I am a businessman, I know. No one in this time of life, the selfish people, they put $1 to serve anybody for free. Those buildings to serve the homeless or the charter school and any organization you do, there is a grand money, big money. The charter school, the pre-K school, they earn $12,000 a year for each children. And also, if you're talking about that, it's mean you are running to present this company or this organization. I like to hear from you, when you are elected as a commissioner in a board of education, what you did for the board of education. Did you bring to the city controlling this board? And also another things include that when you are in a board of education and this charter school in Spruce Street, it's open when you are a commissioner. Did you ask the state to investigate the soil of this property, the radiation underground, or how percentage radiation is going to affect our kids? Thank you.
I want to say thank you for the question. I don't think I understand it. I'm going to apologize to the viewers. I'm going to ask him to repeat all of that for all of you, including myself. I do not understand which question I'm supposed to answer. So if he can clarify, and again, if you're going to talk about a specific site, please be specific. If you're going to ask me about a specific project, please be specific, because we do a lot of great work in this city. And if you're going to talk about financing, make sure you have your facts correct.
Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Yunus, Mr. Gonzalez apparently isn't clear on the question. There were several statements made.
No,
so if you could just clarify
Okay.
and ask a specific question to Mr. Gonzalez, then he will be happy to respond to you.
Yes, when I said he mentioned millions of dollars spent in a city. Those $1 million spent in a city is those grant money comes from our tax money. And also the organization he worked for, they use this money and spend it. I don't need to see these or hear these in this debate or anywhere, because always he mentioned these, we spending money, we have a project, this and that. He's a worker, employees for this organization. And tomorrow if he gets fired or lay off, okay, he can't deliver nothing for the community. I'm asking personally him, I'm asking about his job. Did he do anything clearly? Did you deliver for the city of Patterson personally any successful work? You used to be first in a board of education. We can't control our education. And also, this is one question, including when you are in a board of education, okay, did you investigate or asking the state to inspect the soil of this school in Spruce Street? That's it. This is my question is clear.
I'm sorry, again, I'm going to apologize to the viewer. He asked about 4 questions. I do not know which question you want me to answer. Can you clarify?
Okay.
Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Yunus has repeated his question. You are free to respond to the question in any respect
Okay.
you desire.
I'm going to try my hardest to correct someone who has no factual information. So, first of all, I'm proud to stand on my record. And when you talk about who I work for and what I've done for the past 7+ years in this city, taking people who are homeless and putting them into their own homes, when you talk about 700 kids who are now in a charter school and provide options for parents to move their kids from one area of school to another because maybe of the crowdedness of the classroom, I'm proud of that, to be part of an organization that has built so much, not in any other city, not in any other state, right here in Paterson. I am a proud Pattersonian. I am a proud Pattersonian. I love the work I do. I can move to any city in the state of New Jersey. I choose not to, because I come with experience, proven experience, to share with the city council so we can replicate the great work we do in saving kids' lives each and every single day. We serve over 2,000 families each and every day. You ask me if I'm proud of this, I'm very proud of this. When I was on the Board of Education, an accomplishment I can tell you right now, myself and another colleague, at that time, Commissioner Dr. Hodges, and I stood overnight from 11 o'clock at night and worked till 8 o'clock in the morning to rewrite a draft shared service agreement between the City of Paterson and the Board of Education on Hinchliffe Stadium, the Armory, and Barley Field, to redevelop it. And I did that because the City Council needed to approve it the next day. I worked overnight with my colleague to rewrite it, which was approved by the City Council, Board of Education, the administration, and it was put on a referendum which passed over 70% by the city residents approving this project to bond money to renovate Hinchliffe Stadium. Unfortunately, this individual, the previous mayor, lost his election, and those plans sat collecting dust. But I tell you what, when I'm councilman, I'm going to take that plan and I'm going to rework it so we make sure that the Hinchliffe Stadium, Barley Field, and the Armory is redeveloped. And we're going to set some money aside to make sure we do this in the upcoming years. Now, what else have I done? I personally led the project to build the school playground at school number 5. In May, and everybody check me on this, in May we're going to do school 2 on Market Street. In June, we're going to do school 7 because they've been needing a playground and they've been asking for one for several years. Check me on that. Whether I'm elected or not, this is the work I do. You have no comparison next to any of us that are sitting here today. Thank you very much.
Don't point to me the answer,
Mr.
just talk directly to the public.
Mr. Yunus,
Okay.
no rebuttal.
Thank
Mr.
you so
Yunus.
much. Thank you. I'm sorry, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's my question to Mr. Jackson. I heard you said you pay taxes, property tax, and your property is foreclosures. Which taxes you talking about? You could explain for me, please?
Mr. Yunus, I appreciate the effort. It's unfortunate that this forum has to be flooded with incorrect information. I don't have any property in foreclosure, sir. If there was anything that may have been filed with the court, it was handled through the due process. You know, I want to take a moment to acknowledge or to let the citizens of the city know. What I am here to do is represent the citizens of Paterson in a clear, transparent way, in a way in which I feel I bring a great deal of responsibility and experience to the table. As a business owner who has, yes, experienced trials of business, many businesses, many people, there's been many citizens within our city that have lost their homes, people that had to move out because they could not afford their homes due to whatever circumstances they may have gone through, whether it was through loss of employment. And those are the things that I'm focusing on, making sure that the people in our city are employed properly so they can afford their homes, so I don't have to ride next to abandoned homes in the city, because we're being more responsible. That's what I'm bringing to the table. I'm not bringing foreclosed properties to the table, Mr. Yunus. And in fact, just to go back on another misleading fact that you said, the $140,000 was not city taxpayer money. In fact, also the charter school in which I played a very instrumental part, because my role here in this city hasn't just begun as I decided to run for city council. I've been partnering with various organizations from within the city for many years, just to ensure that our children have different things. So I played an instrumental role on ensuring that that charter school was open. I took the trips consistently down to the Department of Education. I ensured that all of the provisions was in place, and that money is not grant money. The money that is allocated for that charter school is not a provision of a grant. It is, you have situations that need to be in place to be approved by the Department of Education, which there's organizations here that are doing their due diligence to make sure that we have certain things in place. Just as we have people who work for the city who do a fantastic job, but we need to make sure we get rid of certain styles or certain people who bring a certain atmosphere to the council, and that is what I'm trying to make sure that I do. I'm not here to be combative with anyone, not with the council, not with the administration, not with the public, not with the people who work for the city. I'm here to lend a helping hand to move the vision of the city forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. John Bernard, how you doing? You're the humble man in the middle sitting. My question, do you believe the Afro-American vote for just only the Afro-American candidate, or they should vote for the qualified person, and they ignore who's gonna harm their reputations?
I understood the question. Just can you repeat it again, please, sir?
You believe the Afro-American residents in Paris, the voter, they should vote for all candidates, not just only the Afro-American candidate, not for the Afro-American candidate, the one he harmed, he harmed the reputation of the Afro-American people. Because there is a candidate, he's gonna present the Afro-Americans, he's filing for bankruptcy, and he's now going to present the Afro-American people.
Do you have
Yeah.
a question?
Yeah, he knows. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I like that question, actually. I think that it is up to the citizens to make sure that they come out to vote, not just for an African-American candidate or a Hispanic candidate, but for a candidate. You know, we fought for the option and the right and the opportunity to vote, to exercise our constitutional right. And that's just it. I just hope that everybody come out and pick a candidate that is going to fight for them, work for them, and help push the city or move the city forward. And it's not about a religion, about about the color of someone's skin. It is about the content of a person's character and what they can bring to the table and help the city move forward. Did that
Thank
answer
you.
your question, sir?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you ever
You
so
answered
much.
it. Thank you so much. Mr. McDaniels, how you doing? You are a vice principal in high school. In school, as we know, they teach respect, love, dignity, honesty. If there is any candidate he running for a council man's and he commit fraud, you should tell him to step out of this race or continue in this race.
I'm sorry, was that a question? It sounded more like a statement, what I should do?
Yeah.
Are you asking me, should I
I'm
tell?
asking you, you are as a vice principal in a high school. In a school they teach respect, love, honesty. Okay? I'm asking you, there is a candidate, he commits fraud. He should step out of this race or continue in this race.
Well, it's not my position, especially as a candidate running for re-election. It's not my position to tell other potential candidates whether they should run or not. I appreciate the question. However, I don't think it's my responsibility to tell people whether to run or not. Well, to ensure my success, I would ask that all of you bow out gracefully so that 5B will be the only option on May 13th. Much success. Ken McDaniel, re-election, row 5B. Thank you, Mr. Yunus.
Okay, thank you. Keeping going around. Okay. All right, Mr. Alex Mendez.
Yes, Mr. Union.
Okay. You are elected in Board of Education.
Yes.
In that years, when you came to this board and you inherit the seat from somebody else, did you see any successful work being done by one of the candidates for our campaigning, our candidate now? I don't want to mention names. You are commissioner in Board of Education, and one of the candidates, he was commissioner also in the Board of Education. Did you see and touch any successful job he done it in our Board of Elections?
Well, I will try to answer the question as much closer, but I will try to answer. I was elected in 2010 at the school board at the Patterson Board of Education. When I was elected at that time, there was nobody serving at that board that is sitting right here. But I would like to tell you that in the first evaluation that we received from the state of New Jersey, which is the NJ Ask evaluation, we scored over 80% on 3 out of 5 categories from the state. That was a tremendous progress in that. And 4 years later, we are ready to regain partial local control, and I feel very, very proud to say this because of the hard work that we have done as a team at the Board of Education. Being on partial local control is up to the state, and we're just waiting for that to happen because the numbers are there, and all the different, in the last 4 evaluations that we received from the state, we've been receiving over 80% in most of the category that we're supposed to. And the law say that we're supposed to regain partial local control, and that progress start in 2010 all the way up to 2014, and we're just waiting for the next evaluation. And the same progress I will promise to the resident that I will bring it to this council once I get elected this coming May 13, and I'm 3B. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kenneth Morris, how you doing? You was elected as a chairperson for finance department since 2008. Wow, 2008. 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Is almost 10 years. You have a big history. Okay, since that years until now, I mentioned it many times, our budget is going from $207 million and now $246 million. And all these checks being signed by the council chair for the previous mayor and this mayor now, Mr. Johns, for overtime and sick days, it's been approved by you. And also, those checks was signed for overtime salary was approved by you as a chairperson for this department. Okay? And also, you approved 2 weeks ago a settlement for $312,000 for Mr. Bryan, the one he was working in CD department. And also you approved the settlement, $1.5 million for the police department. Okay, this is the history, we have it. And what's your plan? What's your plan to bring the budget to the actual year 2007?
That's your question.
$207 million.
Thank you, Mr. Yunus. And I didn't know that I was actually elected as mayor. I thought I was elected as a councilman at large because only the mayor and his staff can actually approve checks. As the chair of finance, neither I nor any of my committee members sign checks or approve them. We absolutely did not approve any checks for overtime pay, and if you had been watching the overtime hearings, you would have found that out, you would have discovered that. Nor did we approve any checks for any other erroneous payments to any other elected officials. As I said earlier, Mr. Yunus, I really do admire your passion. It seems to be well placed, but it needs to be backed up by facts. You cannot just put something out there for the public consumption that is not factual. It is unfair. It is insulting to the folks who are watching this broadcast. You know, the thing is, and what I notice when folks put misleading information out for the public consumption is because they don't have anything else. They're not educated on the issues, they haven't done their homework, so they make an attempt to divert from those issues by putting misleading information out there. This process is not about being interviewed for a reality TV show. It's about serving the citizens of Patterson, and they deserve to have us speak and address the issues. They deserve to have the facts presented to them. For the record, I, as chair, did not approve or sign off on any checks. That is not my responsibility. For the record, this body is made up of 9 individuals, not one. Nothing gets passed with one vote. It's a majority of votes. In most cases, when it comes to financial matters, it's a supermajority, which means 6 council people have to approve whatever initiative it is. Now, going back to the tail end of your question, I will continue to do as I've been doing, that because I've been blessed to serve the people of Patterson, is holding folks accountable to ensure that taxes are stabilized, that spending isn't unnecessary to bring economic vitality and growth to this city. Apparently, I've been doing a halfway decent job at it because, as you said, I've been sitting in this seat for over 12 years. And it is my hope, with the support of the people of Patterson, and hopefully you and your family, I'll do another 4 years. Ken Morris, 7B, May 13th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yunus.
Thank you, ma'am.
That concludes our candidates' question and answer period.